We want to continue our discussion about mental health and help break the stigma around it. And who better to help us do that than psychiatrist Dr. Ish Major. He's an expert on all things related to your mind, and he solves relationship issues as the host of Marriage and Family Boot Camp. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ish.
How y'all doing? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So Dr. Ish, we were just speaking with Jonathan Lipnicki about how he was hesitant to share his struggles with anxiety and depression. So how common are situations like this?
So it's very gender specific. In my private practice, I have about currently 600 patients. Whoa. And out of those 600, less than 100 are men. Right? We don't talk about it. Right? Culturally, we've been taught to wall it up. We wake up in the morning, we put the mask on, we armor up, we suit up. We literally say to people, I need you to suit up, right? Which means I just need you to be this one thing, hard, get it done, and not go vulnerable, right? Shout out to the salmon blazer. That's vulnerability, right?
Hey, bro, you cleaned up over there too. Right? I see you over there.
Yeah,
I see you over there, but we'll talk about that later. You cleaned up too. Okay.
So, doctors, this is a pretty simple question. Why do you think there's a stigma around speaking about mental health in the first place?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's reframe it, right? Every time I hear somebody say stigma, I think shame.
Yes.
Right? And we've all been taught to be ashamed of our pain. Joy is the single hardest emotion for us to sustain as humans. And when we feel anything less than that, we somehow feel like we're doing life wrong. We're not doing it quite right. And there's shame in that. There's pain in that because we make two wrong assumptions. We think, number one, everybody else out there is doing it very, very right, and that just ain't true.
So true.
And then, right, the negative track starts to play in our head, and we say, okay, well, maybe who I am isn't enough to feel happy. And that simply is not true.
Amen. Toxic shame. It is dangerous. A common mindset people do have about therapy is, quote unquote, what can a therapist tell me that I don't already know? So tell us, Dr. Ish, what can a therapist help with?
Look, there's a lot of folks out who think you can do it on your own, and this is wrong. Healing those childhood core wounds is an amazing accomplishment as a human on your journey, and nobody does anything amazing alone, right? So here's the analogy. You could walk from New York to LA, and eventually you might get there, or you could get on a plane with a pilot and they can have it in 5 hours, right?
Yep.
The pilot is your therapist. They're there to help guide you along the way. Therapists do things that you simply can't. They point out your patterns, right? They point out your patterns. They tell you what you're doing here, you're also doing here, right? They do that. Therapists hold you accountable. Most of us will do a lot more for anybody else than we'll ever do for ourselves. So when that therapist gives you homework and you got to see them on Friday, you might not have felt like doing it for you, but you're like, you know what? They're going to ask me about it. I want to show them that I'm trying, so I'm going to go ahead and do it, right? They hold you accountable. Point out the patterns, right? And they help guide you along the way at a much faster pace.
I was just telling Sam earlier and Erica privately, but now I'll tell the whole world. My therapist has really just made such big changes for me in 2 months that I feel like a very different person, and I would not have done that or held myself accountable. So
Because of the homework, right?
It
Dr. Donna too.
Dr. Donna as well.
Homework. I'm all about the homework.
Do your work. All right.
The homework. And guys, and with a therapist, right? Never understand. Never forget, we're human, right? And there's nothing like being in the room or on a screen with another human who can mirror some empathy for you. You can see that they care, right? That goes so far when it comes to healing those wounds.
Totally. You have about 30 seconds left, and I just want to touch on the holiday blues. It's supposed to be the happiest time, but come on, it's not for a lot of people. I'm being honest. What can we do, and how can we cope?
So holiday blues is ironic season, right? We're supposed to be super, super happy, but for a lot of us, it's not. So here's what you can do to cope. You can give yourself permission to do some other things. Give yourself permission to not do what everybody else does. If family's doing a Thanksgiving, you can do a Friendsgiving and be around folks who you choose to be with. If home is a train wreck, you can take the train somewhere else. You can get off on the next stop. Right?
I love it.
You can. And give yourself permission to set boundaries. It's like, hey, when you do this, and helps me feel bad, I don't want to be around that. So if that's what you're going to do, I'm going to choose to do something else this holiday season. Give yourself permission to feel good. And that's the biggest thing.
Great advice, Dr. Ish. Thank you so much for joining us today. DBL Nation, you can learn more about him at drishmajor.com or follow him on social media. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Bye, guys.